Alright, so we're gonna be talking about uh what has transpired for Bayonetta 3 over the past morning. As I stream this or record this, and it's not looking good for the most part, to at least to a degree, right? And this is all on Twitter, so we just go on Twitter. I already retweeted this, and you can kind of see my YouTube short already. But let me just pause this for a moment here. So this is Hellena Taylor. This is the original voice actress for the character Bayonetta from, of course, the Bayonetta series. So she has voiced the titular character for the past two games, pretty much everything in between, all the incarnations and everything else you can imagine, right? Smash Brothers, all the crossover possibilities and stuff like that. You name it. She is pretty much Bayonetta. She brought the character to life and is a great voice actress with that alone. This morning, she put out 3 or 4 videos, it seems like. Okay, so it looks like part 4 was deleted. Maybe it was like a typo or something. Anyway, there's at least 3 videos for this regarding to what has happened with her role as Bayonetta. And pretty much it's not looking good on the developer side of it, or not the developers, so to say, on the companies. Let's put it that way. Mostly Nintendo, maybe, but let's just take a look at it. I've already seen the first 2 parts, I think. Let's just go over it for the sake of clarification and context. So let's go. Let's see how loud this is.
Hello, my name's Hellena Taylor, and I am the voice of Bayonetta, and I would like to explain to you why I didn't voice Bayonetta 3. The Bayonetta franchise made an approximated $450 million. That's not including merchandise. As an actor, I trained for a total of 7.5 years. 3 years at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, LAMDA, with voice coach Barbara Barkery, and 4.5 years with the legendary Larry Moss in Los Angeles. And what did they think this was worth? What did they offer to pay me? The final offer to do the whole game as a buyout, a flat rate, was $4,000 US. This is an insult to me, the amount of time that I took to work on my talent and everything that I have given to this game and to the fans. I am asking the fans to boycott this game and instead spend the money that you would have spent on this game donating it to charity. I didn't want the world. I didn't ask for too much. I was just asking for a decent, dignified living wage. What they did was legal, but it was immoral.
Legal, but immoral indeed. This is just so hard to hear because, you know, I actually have been considering getting into, at least get a piece of the voice acting pie, so to say, or voice over pie, so to say. Whether it's for a video game or whether it's for a project of any kind, commercials or whatever, you name it. And to hear stuff like this, it's just it just makes it all harder for me to get started in a way. I love voice acting. I love what it does. What, you know, the output alone is something I love. I love voice acting because it brings cartoon characters to life. I love cartoons. So that's naturally, you know, at least half of it, right? What is a cartoon without the voices, right? I mean, you could have a silent film, right? But the voices are so important to really bring these characters to life and really makes it a whole lot different, especially when it's good voice acting, you know. But either way, on a side, it's really disheartening because this isn't the first time, of course. This has been happening throughout the English voice acting industry in the West. What I've been hearing has been consistently pretty bad, especially when it comes to anime and video games, and even to an extent like the movies and such like that. There's a whole lot to it that sucks about getting into the voice acting industry. Now, when it comes to the union and stuff like that, that's a bit different. But still, I'm sure a lot of people aren't in the union, so to say, and so they have to pretty much take what they can. But stuff like this is felt a little more harsh, at least to some extent, because this is a person who like brought Bayonetta to life. Essentially, she is Bayonetta, and to see Nintendo pretty much treating her like this, at least indirectly, if not directly, is just a real damn shame. It really is. They've been kind of like this with all the other voicing stuff for their games too. Which is why voice acting isn't really a large portion when you notice with these Nintendo games. There are exceptions, of course, but when it comes to like the big Nintendo games, for some reason, they don't put a big emphasis on the voices for a lot of them. So it just kind of makes it all more sense. I just don't know why, but it's just how it is right now with the industry, particularly towards voice acting. I think it's just disheartening, like I said. And for those who want to counterpoint, like, oh, they're just in the booth, you're not really doing as much as, people on the TV or screen or whatever it is, movie and stuff like that. I think that's a very ignorant sort of view on it. That's like comparing boxing to MMA, right? Just because you're not kicking or grappling doesn't make it a lesser combat sport. I think boxing, in fact, is more difficult in some spots or cases. You're restricting yourself to punching, right? In the booth, when you're voice acting, you're restricting yourself to only use your voice to act. And this is coming from someone who has taken an acting class, a beginner acting class, in college, just to get by with the credit and stuff like that. But I've learned quite a bit of things. We did a big monologue at the end as our final. It was an eye opener. Acting alone is just difficult. It's very, very difficult to just harness and master. It's something you do for many years, and I understand that it takes a lot of craftsmanship to really to get to where you see with a lot of actors you see on movies and TV and such like that. Keyword see, right? But when it comes to voice acting, that's the same thing. When you hear it from like Bugs Bunny and such like that, it all roots from like theater, man. You don't just get into a booth and make noises, right? I mean, I guess you could for some people. There are some exceptions, of course. There's always an exception, but for the most part, you gotta learn. You gotta start from somewhere, and of course that comes from school, right? Or a class, something, right? Some form of training and such like that. Especially with taking that acting class ever since, I have a much more of a respect towards the actors, including voice acting, more than ever. I love them already, but I had a much more profounding respect, especially for English voice acting, right? It may not sound like, something to compare with the Japanese voice acting side of things. It's very different, let's just put it that way. But English voice acting should be respected as much as anything else, really. It's just acting. It doesn't really change anything. It's I don't know. It basically boils down to they're just working as hard as anyone else in the industry, and I think they deserve something similar to that, right? In return, And so to hear something like this again, it's just indicative of how bad it is in the industry. Now, I mean, you could say that acting in general is pretty bad right now with the industry when it comes to financial stuff like that and labor and all that stuff, and that's a whole nother story. But specifically doing something like this to even someone that really helped sell the character, especially the titular character, right? Like Bayonetta, for example. And look at that. It's getting a lot of quote tweets, retweets, and likes. Look at that, man. Just from part one, of course. It really is discouraging for, I feel like it's discouraging for anyone who wants to try voice acting and such like that as a career. You need to have a second means of income. You know, like a second job or something, just to keep up with things. Especially if you live in LA and New York and Texas and stuff like that. But more on Los Angeles and New York, and I refer to those, at least those three places, because those are like the big ones where they have the big dubbing companies, right? Voiceovers and stuff like that. Especially here in LA, especially. Right? And living in LA is a nightmare of itself. Again, another story, but that's why I bring up the whole payment thing, and it's just, it's hard, man. It's just a hard world to live with, that itself. And you know, when you want to do the things you want, and you know, but you need to make money and stuff like that, it's just sucks to see something like this. You know, there was another story I've heard from Ed, Edd n Eddy, right? The voice actor for Eddie, I believe, received a similar sort of payment or outcome. And so that actor quit. I forgot his name, forgive me, but that voice actor for Eddie, you don't hear him anymore because he quit the industry altogether. He's doing something else now. I'm sure it is happening for a number of voice actors. And now, lo and behold, we have Hellena Taylor, another notable voice actress who voiced a character very iconic within that, you know, that genre, right? Who brought the character to life, helped you know, sell the character. And for her to just get a flat rate of $4,000 final offer, that is such a spit in the face. I feel like she deserves more than that. And it's not like, you know, she gets these type of gigs on a weekly. She just, it's like a once in a while kind of thing. Plus, I'm sure she's doing a lot of VOs for a number of projects too, including commercials and whatever else, you know, that she can do in order to get by. And probably like, you know, theater and stuff like that. I'm not too sure on that part, but anyway. It's just sad. That's such a sad thing to just get that thrown at you. You know, when you're in a position like that, it's just very sad to hear. Let's hold off for right now, and let's hear part 2. I know there's a lot to talk about already. Let's go on to part 2.
Now, those of you who follow me on Twitter know that I'm more of a lover than a fighter, and sometimes think I'm not very much like Bayonetta at all, but I guess I am a little bit more like Bayonetta than I thought.
Yep.
I understand that boycotting this game is a personal choice, and there are those that won't, and that's fine. But if you're someone who cares about people, who cares about the world around you, who cares about who gets hurt with these financial decisions, then I urge you to boycott this game. I decided to do it to stand up in solidarity with people all over the world who do not get paid properly for their talents. Fat cats cream off the top and leave us the rotten crumbs. You know, in England right now, there are nurses going to food banks to feed their children. This is not right. This is not acceptable. It impacts mental health. Because of it, I suffered from depression and anxiety. I worried that I was going to be on the streets. That terrified me so much that once I was suicidal. I am not afraid of the non-disclosure agreement. I can't even afford to run a car. What are they going to do? Take my clothes? Good luck to them. Bayonetta always stands up for those with less power and stands up for what is right. And in doing this, you stand with her.
So there is part 2. So yes, as you may know already, she has asked for the people to boycott the game. There are a lot of things to go into this. It's very complicated, but TLDR, no one wins in this situation, because I completely understand where she comes from. You know, so obviously, you know, because what has happened to her, she doesn't win. It sucks though, because if you don't buy the game, obviously that does something to the developers as well, right? If they don't get the, you know, the sales, so to say, it's gonna potentially going to give them the undercut as well, right? And then of course, when it comes to the consumers, you know, there are a lot of people who have been waiting for Bayonetta for a very long time. Another Bayonetta game for a long time. I have a friend who has been looking very much forward to playing the game. And so for those who decide to still get the game, there's absolutely understandable. You know, you've been waiting for a long time to play this game on the Switch. You know, again, you know, my friend on the Hypecast, Zawa or Zawadori, has been waiting for this game for a very long time, has been very much looking forward to playing it in a couple of weeks. And for something to come out like, for this to come out is very depressing. It's just disheartening again. And it's just, it's gonna leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths now. Now that we know this, many of us know this. And so, in that sense already, we don't win. Now, you know, of course, if you skip on this game, you can't play it, right? So that's already a loss there too. It's just hard because, you know, of having to make a decision because of someone else deciding not to, you know, properly, morally pay this hardworking voice actors here properly, you know, in that regard. It's just so unfortunate that these things happen. It's nothing new. Like I said, like I've been saying, it's nothing new for the English voice actors, at least. I understand where this is all coming from, and then you want to send a message of sorts to the industry. I know someone who has made a video this morning, put it out on YouTube, and respects the boycotting, right? However, he did say that that it's a bit harsh, and you know, what about the developers, the other people who worked on the game, right? So it's hard, it's difficult, right? You know, at the end of the day, we all just want to play video games, right? I understand that, and you know, I have my own biases too when it comes to these sort of situations, right? You know, you get the whole thing with Activision Blizzard with the lawsuit that's been going on, and yet people are still playing these games, right? From WoW to Overwatch 2, you know, I'm guilty of that too because I play Overwatch 2. Therefore, I'm kind of like willfully sort of putting that aside just to fulfill my, you know, my need and interests and stuff like that. So call it what you will, bias and stuff like that, but everyone has their bias, everyone has their views, everyone has their takes and 2 cents and stuff like that. It's a very difficult situation. It's very complicated. There's a lot of layers to it, and the end result of that is that no one wins. You know, if we don't buy this game, it doesn't support the character and doesn't support the developing company, right? It sends a message immediately to someone like Nintendo that we don't want this game. But at the end of the day, if someone like Hellena Taylor is not voicing Bayonetta, to me at this point, there is no Bayonetta, right? No offense to Jennifer Hill, I'm sure she will do a good job voicing the character and such, but that also is a separate thing too, because I wonder really if she is that much more expensive or not, because it's just so strange to, do this to Hellena Taylor again, who has really established Bayonetta, right, as a video game character, to really sell on her gimmicks and her shtick and everything, right? Why do all this stuff just to, bring in another actress, right? It's just so weird, because if you really wanted to replace her, just say, hey, we're gonna recast the character. I'm sorry, but that's just the decision we've come to. Blah blah blah. So, I'm sure she would understand that. It sucks, but I'm sure that's a more understandable approach at the end of it. It's more professional and everything, but there is a thing. There is word that they did this, just to make her quit, in a way. Maybe if they did try to do it the old-fashioned way, hey, we're casting, maybe she would have put up some sort of argument, like why, blah blah blah, might have resisted or something like that, maybe, possibly, but still, it's just like, this is such a poor way to approach it too, if you want someone to be recasted, right? So the $4,000 thing, it's just like, what? You know what I mean? And what's even more demoralizing, really, is that this was the final offer, right? So initially she was offered less than that. So take that into consideration. Let that sink in, there is a certain level of selfishness. I don't agree with this. Don't think boycotting is the way to go. Yeah, I mean, I understand. It sucks. But then again, it's like, knowing now I know this, it's like, do I really want to play the game now? Do I, I would feel uncomfortable playing the game. So I personally would probably stay away from it for right now. To me, like, there is stuff coming up too, like, Sonic Frontiers, and then there's Pokemon, right? So that itself already is pretty, like, tight, right? And so that, in that sense, skipping a game like Bayonetta, okay, yeah, so you get why she's upset and blah blah blah. So I don't know, and I mean, it doesn't seem, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. So personally, I don't know, I just kind of like I suddenly lost interest to play the game. Is it gonna work? Probably not. Likely not. The game's gonna sell. People want to play stuff on the Switch, and people are gonna buy it. I mean, there is a lot of responses going on, but at the end of the day, are people gonna buy the game? Likely, right? It also sucks because people were pointing fingers at Kamiya, because he's like the sort of the big name. Right? Yeah. So I did touch upon that, right? While I do understand, I'm going to reiterate this, I do understand why she's doing this, right? She feels this way, and I think she does have a right to feel this way. But if you think about it, right, do you really want to base your decision or just base it around this, right? Because there are other people involved. It's not just about you. It's about, it's also about the developers, right? Primarily the devs. There are other people involved, right? Sound, graphics, everything. And so having to like make a decision because of maybe like a few people or one person's decision to give this person a disrespectful amount of money, that's what's going to shift, that's what's going to be the factor here. That's what really sucks about it. But I just, at this point now, it lost a big part of the appeal, right? In a way, because this person really brought the character to life and such. Now, again, let me reiterate that, Jennifer Hale, I'm pretty sure she will do a good job voicing Bayonetta and such. But no one wins. I get, like I've been saying, no one really wins. But let's just go to the part 3, see what he has to also say.
For those of you who are interested, I'd like to go into a little more detail about the back and forth. The first thing was I was required to audition again, because sometimes voices change with time. So I auditioned for the role and obviously passed with flying colours. They then sent me an insulting offer. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to write to Hideki Kamiya. I'm going to write to him and ask him for what I'm worth. So I got a friend who has been in business in Japan to write in Japanese to him. I know he read it because I got a reply. I got a reply saying that he values greatly my contribution to the game and that the fans really want me to voice it over, and the memory of first meeting me as Bayonetta is a memory I hold dear. So I thought, great, thank God. That was when they offered me $4,000 US. Do you know, Platinum had the cheek to say that I was busy, that they couldn't make it work with Miss Taylor's schedule. Well, I had nothing but time. They now have a new girl voicing her over. And I love actors. I wish her all the joy in the world. I wish her all the jobs, but she has no right to say she is the voice of Bayonetta. I created that voice. She has no right to sign merchandise as Bayonetta, any more than I have the right to sign as Eva Green, even though I was her parrot on the video game The Golden Compass. That portrayal is hers and hers alone. They'll probably try and do a spin-off with Jan. Don't buy that either.
Right, so this does come off more definitely in this particular part too. This is where it does sound more and more selfish, right? You know, saying that I'm the voice, right? I am Bayonetta, therefore she doesn't deserve the merchandise, whatever fuck, royalties and such like that. That one is a bit going too far, or that one is going too far, I say. But I get why she said that, right? I mean, I understand where that's coming from, and obviously her emotions are going, you know, a little more rampant at that point, and she's gonna come out and say things like that. And it is more of a selfish take, especially here in this particular part. But yes, it is a selfish take overall, because you're asking to boycott the game based off of something that's mostly affecting, you know, the voice actor and stuff like that. But when it comes to the rest of the video game, right, there's more to it than that. You know, gotta pay the developers, you gotta pay the marketing, you gotta pay for, you know, all the other staff that help get the game done and such like that, and that's just one piece of the puzzle. You know, it sucks. It sucks altogether, and no one really wins at the end of the day. It's just, you know, most likely, if the boycott does work, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, like I've been alluding, Bayonetta is gonna be gone. She's not gonna be in another game again, because that's like saying, oh, people don't want Bayonetta anymore. Poof, right? And it sucks because the developers worked hard to get the game done and such like that, only to get that to happen, right? It sucks. But what can you do to really send the message of like, hey, you know, voice actors deserve better, right? What can you do? You know, that's like $1 million question, pretty much. Personally, for me, at this point, I'm still leaning more towards not buying the game, solely because, you know, there are other games coming up, and I'm not sure if I can like fit all those like reviews, like right, like there's Bayonetta coming, right, and then right around that is Sonic Frontiers, and then a couple weeks after that is Pokemon, right? So these big games are like around the corner, so I do want to, you know, primarily focus on those just to make sure I can like get the reviews out, I can, you know, experience it the best I can. Not to mention, there's other games like Overwatch and Apex and Genshin Impact and stuff like that I'm, trying to keep up with, but it's a lot of juggling and stuff like that. So, in that sense, skipping Bayonetta will be beneficial in that practical sense. I guess it'll also benefit, her in a way, because yes, it is a form of boycotting and stuff like that. But if I did get around to playing this game, I don't know. I just feel not right playing the game. I just feel personally uncomfortable with it. And I do want to make it clear though that if anyone out there is still want to play the game, like I said, there is no shame in that, because you've been waiting for this game for a very long time. The devs have been working on this game for a very long time, and that should not be shifted by a decision of one person, right? So whether it's Hellena Taylor or the person who offered her the money, or the group of people who offered that money, right? So it really boils down to those two, really, right? So having to sort of like make your decisions around them, that's not right. You should make your own decisions. And so at the end of it, I'm going to respect that. There is no shame in, just wanting to consume the video game, right? There's so much out there that has those underlying sort of bad things tied to it, right? Like Amazon with all the labor stuff. That's still a problem, right? And yet there's just billions of people buying that shit every single day. Of course, there's shoe companies, right? They've been labeled, having the whole child labor thing, especially with Nike, right? But hey, people still buy Nike because people need shoes. I understand that. And who knows what other companies are doing under our noses, right? So at the end of the day, it's just I don't know. It's a very difficult thing to sort of like take in all this. It's just shitty. It sucks to hear, and sometimes hey, ignorance is bliss. I get it. So I'm not trying to shame anyone who is buying Bayonetta 3. But understand why, she is feeling this way, at least. And I think even she said, if you want to still play the game, that's fine. But yes, she also kind of like said, oh, but if you care, if you're a human, then you boycott the game, that sort of thing. She kind of like threw those she sort of like underhanded that sort of stuff, you know what I mean? Like a backhand almost, like a backhanded comment almost. But again, I do understand where she's coming from, and at the end of the day, it all sucks. It's very disheartening, and, I think that's a real key word for it. And I think she understands, right? She, that's why she feels just sad. It's just how it's all unfolding. That's pretty much like most of my thoughts on it, with the boycotting of Bayonetta 3. So again, like, am I gonna buy it? Not really now, because I personally don't feel comfortable with it. Seeing that she's being treated this way, right, for somebody who has helped establish the character, such like that. But there is some negatives that are on Taylor, right? With the whole like, I'm banning it. She shouldn't. So Jennifer Hale shouldn't say, does not have the right to say, this is my voice, blah, 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 and stuff like that. So that does come off as selfish, and that's where I am going to disagree with that. But again, I can understand where she was coming from, with all the other things that have been happening. So, but, I'm not buying the game because of like, it's like half personal reasons, half the Hellena Taylor stuff, essentially, Like, hey, if I don't play this game, I can open up my time for Sonic and for Pokemon. Definitely now. Right. And I save some money, and I can put that money into something else, possibly, for sure. So there are benefits to that. That's how I kind of look at it too. Again, I do, clarify it. There's no shame in buying the game. Still, I think we shouldn't have to make our decisions around just a couple of people. I think you should just make your own decisions at the end of it. In this case here, I think that's you know, I think that's pretty reasonable. That I would like to play the game eventually, right? When the game is cheaper, then I'll probably give the game a spin, right? But this is just solely on release, right? When it's, you know, full price, whatever. That's the point I wanted to clarify too. Make sure that, you know, people understand that I would like to play the game someday, right? I would like to play Bayonetta 3 someday, just to, you know, give it a whirl and stuff like that. But for right now, as it's release, full price and everything, I'm not gonna go ahead with that. When a game is cheaper on sale or whatever the case may be, then I may consider putting my time into it at a later date. But for right now, it's a no-go personally for me.